Chosen one, God put you in the life of a narcissist for a purpose, and in the end you succeeded. You were placed in the path of a pure psychological predator for a divine reason that you are finally ready to understand. You probably spent countless nights staring at the ceiling, wondering why this specific nightmare chose your address. The truth is heavy, but it is also the ultimate vindication of your spirit. You were never just a random victim of their cruelty. You were uniquely selected for this. God put you in the life of a narcissist because you possessed a light so intensely powerful that it was required to expose the absolute depths of their darkness. They operated in the shadows for years, destroying people quietly without ever leaving a trace. Nobody else had the courage or the spiritual stamina to withstand their storm and hold up the mirror. You were the anomaly they never expected to encounter. When they first locked eyes with you, they did not just see a target to be used. They saw a terrifying reflection of everything they lacked and everything they could never be. Your empathy, your genuine warmth, and your unshakable core values threatened their entire fake reality. The universe essentially placed a ticking time bomb of pure truth directly into the center of their carefully constructed delusions. They thought they were playing a game that they had mastered over decades of manipulation. They believed you were just another pawn on their board, someone to drain and discard when they got bored. But they failed to realize that you were not playing their game at all. You were actively dismantling their entire foundation just by existing in their space and refusing to surrender your fundamental sense of self. This is why the abuse escalated so quickly and why it felt so insanely personal. They were not just trying to hurt your feelings, they were desperately trying to extinguish a spiritual fire that was burning them alive. Every time you forgave them, every time you showed grace, you inadvertently magnified their inner demonic shame. Your continued goodness became a spotlight on their completely hollow, rotting core. You might look back and criticize yourself for staying so long, for enduring the lies, the gaslighting, and the betrayals. But that endurance was not a sign of your weakness or some fatal flaw in your character. It was the absolute proof of your divine assignment. You stayed because your soul was working overtime to fulfill a cosmic mandate that required their ultimate exposure and your total transformation. The pain you experienced was unimaginable, tearing through your mind and forcing you to question your sanity on a daily basis. Yet, that precise agony was the furnace required to forge your current state of profound awareness. If they had been just mildly toxic, you would have compromised and stayed forever. They had to push you to the very brink of destruction so you would finally break the cycle permanently. Look closely at who you have become in the aftermath of their psychological warfare. You are no longer the naive, blindly trusting person who first walked into their perfectly laid trap. You possess an eagle-eyed discernment that can spot a manipulator from a mile away. They tried to bury you in their toxic wasteland, not knowing you were a seed explicitly designed to flourish in the most hostile environments. They served as the brutal catalyst for your ultimate awakening, a dark messenger wrapped in a false promise of love. Without their extreme cruelty, you would have never searched so relentlessly for the truth about human nature. You would have never discovered your own boundaries or realized the fierce, protective warrior living inside you. Their attempt to break your mind actually unlocked your greatest power. Your victory is not just about survival, it is about the fact that they completely failed to corrupt your beautiful spirit. They wanted you to become bitter, hateful, and just as deeply cynical as they are. But instead of turning into a monster, you alchemized their poison into pure wisdom. You emerged from their private hell with your soul fully intact, and this marks the beginning of their permanent undoing. To truly understand your victory, you must dissect the exact psychological mechanics they used to trap you in the first place. Narcissists do not just stumble into a relationship, they conduct a predatory audit of your vulnerabilities. They mirrored your deepest desires, adopting your hobbies, your moral stances, and your future dreams. It was a perfectly calculated performance designed to bypass your defenses. Once you're thoroughly addicted to the fake persona they created, the systematic devaluation quietly began behind closed doors. They started dropping tiny, plausible insults masked as helpful advice, slowly chipping away at your core confidence. When you reacted to their subtle cruelty, they flipped the script immediately, branding you as overly sensitive and entirely irrational. It was textbook crazy-making. The gaslighting became their primary weapon of choice, a psychological tool used to rewrite your entire reality on a daily basis. They would deny saying things they had screamed at you just hours prior, staring at you with a blank, terrifying sincerity. This was not a failure of their memory, it was a deliberate attempt to make you distrust your own cognitive functions. They needed you confused and dependent. Notice how they expertly weaponized your natural empathy against you, turning your greatest virtue into your most dangerous liability. Whenever you finally gathered the strength to hold them accountable, they suddenly became the tragic victim. They would weave intricate tales of their past traumas to distract you from their current abuse. Your compassionate heart would soften, and they would escape justice again. This traumatic bonding cycle kept you tethered to a person who was actively poisoning your mental health and draining your spirit. Intermittent reinforcement, the breadcrumbing of tiny moments of affection mixed with intense cruelty, hijacked your brain chemistry completely. You were not weak for staying, you were biochemically hooked on the hope that the person you met in the beginning would finally return to you. But their mask inevitably slips because nobody can sustain a completely fabricated existence forever without showing their true face. The discrepancies between their public image and their private behavior became too massive for you to ignore any longer. You started noticing the dead, cold stare in their eyes when they thought nobody was watching them. You finally saw the hollow shell hiding behind the grandiosity. Their smear campaigns are another vital piece of their defensive puzzle, launched the moment they realize they are losing control. They rush to play the victim to your mutual friends, spinning a narrative where you are the unstable, abusive partner. This preemptive strike is designed to isolate you and ensure nobody believes your story. It is a desperate act of a coward terrified of being unmasked to the world. Everything they do is driven by an all-consuming fear of core shame and a desperate need to feel superior to those around them. They extract narcissistic supply from your reactions, feeding on your tears, your anger, and your desperate pleas for basic decency. When you cry out in pain, they feel a surge of omnipotent power, validating their false sense of godhood. You were merely a battery for their fragile ego. But here is where their intricate plan ultimately failed when it came to you and your deeply ingrained spiritual resilience. They vastly underestimated the sheer force of a spirit that is backed by a higher purpose and an unwavering inner truth. They assumed you would crumble and accept their false reality just like all their previous victims had done. They never anticipated that you would fight back with pure silence. By stepping away and implementing strict no contact, you shattered the very foundation of their twisted psychological matrix. You took away their fuel, their control, and their ability to dictate their narrative of your shared existence. You did not just survive their meticulous attempts to break you, you outmaneuvered them completely. Your absolute withdrawal left them staring into the terrifying void of their own soul. Now we enter the phase of divine retribution, where the cosmic scales finally balance and the unseen forces take complete over. You do not need to seek revenge or lift a single finger to punish them for the immense damage they inflicted upon your life. The universe has already taken up your cause, and the penalty for trying to destroy a chosen one is unspeakably severe. Their karma is being delivered on a daily basis. The most brutal punishment for a narcissist is not some dramatic, fiery explosion, it is the agonizingly slow decay of their mask. Without your brilliant light to camouflage their darkness, their true nature is slowly becoming visible to everyone around them. They can no longer hide behind your good reputation, and the enablers who once believed their lies are starting to wake up. Their social facade is crumbling away. God removed you from their life because your protective aura was actually shielding them from the brutal consequences of their actions. You were the ultimate buffer between their toxic behavior and the harsh reality of the outside world. By walking away, you stripped them of their primary defense mechanism, leaving them entirely exposed to the unyielding laws of cause and effect. They are now facing the music all alone. You may wonder if they are happy with their new supply, the person they flaunted to make you feel completely utterly replaceable. The truth is that they are deeply miserable, trapped in a relentless cycle of idealization and inevitable, crushing disappointment. No one will ever love them with the purity and intensity that you did. They are doomed to chase cheap imitations of your love for the rest of their pathetic lives. Every new relationship they enter is just another ticking time bomb waiting to detonate in their face with catastrophic results. They cannot change their abusive patterns because they refuse to acknowledge that there is anything fundamentally wrong with them. They will repeatedly burn down every bridge and destroy every connection until they are left in total isolation. This is the unchangeable curse they brought upon themselves. Divine justice operates in the quiet moments when the narcissist is completely alone and the distractions have finally faded away. In the dead of night, they are tormented by an unshakable sense of emptiness that no amount of superficial praise can ever fill. They know, deep down in their buried subconscious, that they threw away a rare, once-in-a-lifetime soul. The regret is a slow-acting poison devouring their mind. You were not meant to be their savior, despite how desperately you tried to heal their deeply ingrained, childhood-rooted wounds. You were a divine mirror, specifically positioned to reflect their monstrous behavior back at them with absolute clarity. Once your purpose was fulfilled, you were abruptly pulled from the wreckage so you would not go down with their sinking ship. Your exit was a highly orchestrated rescue mission. Think about the immense strength it took to walk away from someone you truly believed was the absolute love of your entire life. That strength did not come from you alone. It was a profound surge of spiritual intervention forcing you to choose your own survival. God literally broke your heart in order to save your soul from being entirely consumed by a psychological vampire. It was a painful but necessary amputation. As they spiral further into their inevitable decline, you are simultaneously rising to heights you never previously imagined possible. The energy you used to waste managing their chaotic moods is now being funneled directly into your own monumental personal growth. Every step forward you take is a silent, crushing defeat for them, proving that their attempt to ruin you was a total failure. You are thriving in their absence. They are acutely aware of your ongoing success, even if they pretend that you no longer exist in their meticulously curated reality. They stalk your social media from fake accounts, obsessively monitoring the beautiful life you have built without their toxic presence. Your sheer happiness is the ultimate form of divine retribution, a glaring reminder of the magnificent light they forever lost. They cannot escape this truth. The internal collapse of a narcissist is a chilling phenomenon to observe, completely invisible to the casual, untrained bystander. To the outside world, they might still appear successful, charming, and highly functional in their daily professional routines. But behind closed doors, their psychological framework is fracturing under the immense pressure of their own compounding lies. The foundation is rotting from the inside out. They are suffering from a terminal case of narcissistic depletion, constantly chasing a high that becomes harder and harder to achieve. The primary supply sources they rely on are getting younger, more naive, and increasingly incapable of providing the deep fuel they crave. They are starving on a spiritual level, desperately trying to fill a bottomless abyss with fleeting, superficial admiration. It is a pathetic existence. As they age, their physical charm and superficial allure begin to fade, stripping away their most potent tools of rapid manipulation. The charisma that once allowed them to effortlessly trap high-value targets like you starts to look desperate, practiced, and deeply unsettling. People instinctively sense the predatory energy lurking beneath their plastic smiles and begin to pull away. The inevitable isolation is now setting in. This creeping isolation triggers severe narcissistic injury, causing them to lash out with increasing paranoia and erratic behavior. They start burning bridges with long-term friends and family members who dare to question their contradictory stories or demand basic respect. Their circle shrinks until they are surrounded only by sycophants, enablers, and people too terrified to challenge them. They roll over an empty kingdom. You survived because you possessed a genuine identity, a core self that existed long before they ever infiltrated your precious life. The narcissist has no true self. They are an amalgamation of stolen traits, mimicked emotions, and carefully rehearsed defense mechanisms. When they are alone, they cease to exist in any meaningful way, reduced to a haunting echo chamber of endless self-loathing. They are terrified of the silence. Their cognitive dissonance becomes so overwhelmingly loud that it begins to manifest in physical ailments and severe psychological breaks. They cannot reconcile the perfect, godlike image they project with the trail of absolute destruction they have left in their sinister wake. To maintain their fragile delusion, they must constantly rewrite history, completely exhausting their mental capacity. Their mind is a frantic war zone. Think about the immense psychological fortitude it takes for you to simply sit here and objectively analyze their devastating behavior. You have transcended the pain, transforming your profound trauma into a razor-sharp tool for identifying and dismantling toxic manipulation. They, on the other hand, are completely incapable of self-reflection, forever doomed to repeat their tragic failures. You evolved, while they simply decayed. You are the living embodiment of their ultimate failure, the undeniable proof that their dark magic does not work on a truly pure soul. They threw every manipulation tactic in the book at you, attempting to systematically dismantle your sanity, your joy, and your self-worth. Yet here you stand, more powerful, more radiant, and more deeply aligned with your divine purpose than ever before. Your existence is their daily defeat. They will never experience the profound peace that currently resides deep within your heart, a peace born from incredible suffering. They will never know what it feels like to love someone purely, without an agenda, without a hidden motive, and without a constant need to control. They are permanently locked out of the beautiful human experiences that make life genuinely worth living. They are ghosts haunting their own empty lives. As the silent collapse completes its final terrifying phase, they are left with absolutely nothing but the crushing weight of their own sins. There is no redemption arc for a predator who actively refuses to feel any remorse for the innocent lives they have mercilessly destroyed. They are utterly consumed by the dark void they tried to drag you into, while you walk freely in the brilliant sunlight. The battle is officially over. This brings us full circle to the profound realization of your true identity and the massive cosmic significance of your unique journey. You were entirely designed to withstand psychological pressure that would have utterly shattered an ordinary, spiritually unprotected human being. The narcissist was simply a blunt instrument used by the universe to chisel away your lingering doubts and deep insecurities. You are the masterpiece. Embrace the magnificent reality that you were chosen specifically because your heart was vast enough to experience the deepest levels of pain. Only a soul capable of immense agony is also capable of wielding unimaginable levels of divine love, fierce compassion, and healing energy. The dark night of the soul you endured was the ultimate prerequisite for your incredible spiritual ascension. The shadows have completely cleared away. You are now a beacon for others who are still trapped in the suffocating darkness of narcissistic abuse, desperately looking for an exit. Your survival story is a potent weapon against the insidious lies planted by these emotional predators in the minds of their innocent victims. By simply standing in your absolute truth, you cast a blinding light that shatters their illusions and exposes their horrific deeds. You are a warrior. Do not waste another precious second mourning the phantom relationship you thought you had, because none of it was ever actually real. The person you loved was a carefully projected mirage, designed specifically to keep you compliant, exhausted, and fundamentally off balance. Mourning a mirage only blocks you from experiencing the vast, authentic blessings that are currently rushing into your beautiful life. Let the dead past go. Every boundary you establish today is a sacred fortress protecting your deeply purified spirit from ever being heavily compromised again. You have learned the incredibly hard way that access to your energy is a tremendous privilege, not a basic right to be freely handed out. Never again will you negotiate your worth with someone who views your immense kindness as a ridiculous weakness to be ruthlessly exploited. You are untouchable. The incredible intuition you developed during your time in the psychological trenches is now your greatest, most reliable internal compass. You can instantly detect the subtle micro-expressions of contempt, the highly calculated word salads, and the trademark manufactured chaos. What once confused and completely paralyzed you is now blatantly obvious and entirely laughable. You can read these predators like an open, childish book. Reflect on the sheer magnitude of what you have successfully accomplished by simply breaking the intensely addictive trauma bond forever. You effectively halted a generational cycle of toxic abuse, ensuring that their particular brand of darkness stops right here, right now. Your courageous exit was a monumental victory that sent massive shockwaves through the spiritual realm, permanently shifting your entire destiny. You finally won. As you step fully into this newly reclaimed power, you will notice that toxic individuals naturally repel themselves from your high vibration. They take one look at the intense, unwavering boundaries you project and instantly scurry back into the dark corners where they belong. Your aura now serves as an impenetrable energetic shield, deflecting all malice, jealousy, and subtle manipulation attempts with absolute ease. You are safe. This is the ultimate revenge, a life lived so beautifully and so authentically that the painful memory of the narcissist completely fades. They become nothing more than a tiny, insignificant footnote in the epic, triumphant saga of your incredible spiritual awakening journey. You do not hate them anymore. You view them with a profound sense of detached apathy, fully recognizing their tragic, inescapable emptiness. You are fully free. Your journey through this unbelievable darkness has forged an armor around your soul that no toxic entity will ever be able to penetrate again. You have mastered the brutal lessons of betrayal, completely severing the energetic chains that once bound you to their sick and twisted reality. Every agonizing tear you shed was a vital initiation rite, a necessary step to awaken your ultimate power. It becomes crystal clear exactly why